So as per, we're looking at different database objects. Next one is triggers, database trigger. So we have a database table, let's say, and you perform different kind of operations, like say insert, update. Yeah. You would be inserting a new record or updating an existing record or set delete. Any kind of operation you might be doing on this table. When you do this operation on this table, I would like to perform some follow-up action on this. I would like to perform some follow-up actions. Then we go with what? DB trigger. So what I'll do, I'll have this table, DB table. On top of this table, I'll define a trigger. I'll define a database trigger saying this trigger has to be fired for every insert or something. So what happens? Every time you perform an insert operation on this table, this follow-up action will be performed. That action could be anything. And you implement this action with SQL script. You implement this logic of the follow-up action by using SQL script or SQL script. That's it. Okay. So now we're just trying to understand, because we're not still strong in SQL script now yet. But I'm not focusing on writing scripting now. We're only focusing on understanding the concept of trigger. That's it. Okay. So for that, and the maximum number of triggers you can create on one table is 1024. You can create 1024 triggers on one table. See, this is a pretty much real-time requirement. We have this requirement. See, we are implementing a warehouse. We are extracting data from different source and loading into our warehouse, and then we are doing reporting. So in the warehouse, they would like to do manual editing also because of their business process. After the data has been brought into warehouse, they would like to do manual editing because they want to do some data corrections. See, so let's say there is a table and they do manual corrections on this table. So in warehouse, it's a general requirement. Say you change some structure of this table, then you drop all this data, then reload again from the source. When I reload again from the source, am I going to lose all the changes what was done manually on this table? Let's say manually there will be they have some interface and they're doing some inserts on this table, or they have been doing a lot of updates. Are we going to lose all those updates, all those changes again? Because they have not done changes in the source. They have done changes directly in the warehouse. When I drop the data and then reload again from the source, I'm going to lose all the manual changes. In this case, what we are trying to do is we are trying to use a trigger on this table for every update. So every time the user updates, I'm formulating a log table, audit table, I'll say. Generally, they use this terminology called audit tables. In the audit table, I'm keeping track of all the updates, what is happening. For every update, which user, on what date and time, which field was updated, what was the old value, what is the new value. In fact, I'm actually storing the complete update statement also, what is executed. All those I'm storing in the log in detail. Later, the purpose of this log is to cross-check what changes have been done, who has done what changes. And also what I'm trying to do is, suppose whenever I reload data from the source to the table again, I'm trying to have a flexibility where I look at these logs and re-execute all those logs, again get the data back to status what it was. Almost like a data persistency concept of Hana. So that's why whenever this concept becomes important when you want to collect all these kind of audit logs scenarios. Clear? Okay. And someone also someone also asked me a question recently. He had this question in the interviews. Let's say this is a table in Hana. Other day we've seen something called SLT, which was we were using real-time replication server. So let's say in the source there is a table. In the source there is a table. Through SLT, replicating real-time data from this table into this table in Hana bus. Means what happens? If I add a record, it adds a record. If I update a record, this record is modified. Right? But when there is a real-time replication like this, you want to have the snapshot on the table. Snapshot means, say for example, now the value is 100. You should have a record as 100. Let's say tomorrow they modify this value as say 150. You should be able to do reporting on both the things. The value is 100. As of this date, the value was 100. As of this date, the value was 150. But if I just use this table, this will be over. If I update here, it also updates this record. So even I see here also as 150 only. Right? So then what we're doing, so when you want to simulate that kind of snapshot scenario, every time the data is put into this table, we have a trigger on this table which is collecting data into another table automatically. So now for every update or insert delete, what I'm doing, I'm adding here, there might be update or insert, whatever it is, but I'm adding here as a new record. So now first record comes in as 100, which is an insert. There will be trigger on insert, which will format a new record saying for this date, the value is so and so. Again, there's an update. Again, I'll also have another separate trigger for what? Update statement also. So when update is here, I'll collect that record and add as a new record. Now in this table, I'm going to have what? The yesterday's date with 100 and today's date with what? 150. That is how we can do. In even that scenario, you can use triggers also. Yeah, because this will be coming in real time. And even the trigger is fired out automatically whenever there's an insert operation or delete operation or update operation on the table. We can use this concept there also. Okay, boss? Okay. So just demonstrating on okay. So what I'm just trying to simulate the same kind of scenario. What I'm doing is, I'm just creating a table called, what is this here? Audit table, where I'm going to collect all the logs. But here the log is not very detailed. The log is just holding out username and what date and time this transaction was done. That's it. Okay? And here username and timing both are primary key. And this timing is with timestamp data type and this is with varchar. Just creating it. Then I'm just creating a normal application table where I'm going to hold the data into it. Okay. This is my table. So now I'm just creating a trigger here. Look at the syntax of the trigger. This is all the frame. Yeah. This is all the body. Sorry, this is all the header, and this is the actual logic. The body where this is the actual logic. What it performs when the trigger is fired out. I'm saying create trigger is a create table, create trigger, create view, same. And this is the name of the trigger. Okay. And this is the action on which my trigger has to be fired out. I'm saying after insert on to which table was, this is the table for each row. For each row being inserted into this table, begin and end, within this begin and end, I implement this logic of the logic of my triggers. So I'm just saying create trigger so and so, and this trigger has to be fired out when bus after every insert onto this table for each row bus. For every row you're inserting on this table, it will be fired out bus. And within this begin and end, you can implement any kind of logic you want, because you have free hand of writing SQL scripting. You can write any logic. But my logic is about just saying for every insert what I'm doing, it fires this. What I'm doing, I'm just inserting I have a function called current user, which gives me the current user who is in the session, and this gives me current timestamp dynamically. I'm inserting both of them into what? Into this audit table. So this is my trigger, what has been creating this trigger. You can see the triggers what is created here. You can see this was a trigger, insert logs. You can see this trigger. The same trigger definition can be seen here. So, what has been created. Now, if that is there, if I'm trying to insert, let's say I insert one record now. Yeah. If I insert a record, first thing is what I should see. In this application table, I should see that entry. Yes. One record. And then in the audit table, I should see an audit saying this user was what? I logged in with which user? System user, and this is the timing. And let's say I insert one more record again. So I see a second record being inserted into this application table, and immediately there is a log. Since these two both are primary key, it is able to accept the combination. Same way, insert next record. It collects a log, and this log could be any detail post. For now, I'm just collecting only the username and timing. Again, fourth, like this, we can use the triggers. In SLT concept would use the same concept of triggering triggers, database triggers. When you look at real-time replication with SLT, it does use this concept of trigger-based rules. We'll see that. But this is the concept of triggers. So you have database object, you want to perform some follow-up action on every insert or update or delete, then you can go with triggers. Okay. If you see the syntax, see it's only about writing the header. Once you have the header, the body could have any logic you want. So for writing logic, you will start using scripting. Okay. So once you're familiarized with scripting, you can include any kind of logic you want. Okay. Next, comment. Comment is very simple. It's about adding your description to the database objects, table or a column. You can take important. Now let's say I'm just creating this table. If you remember in the UI, we're able to specify a comment on for each column, like description of the column. Yeah. That is about, you can also specify a description for a table, saying comment on table, so and so is what? Employee details table. So this is like adding a description for your table. Same way, you can add description for your columns also. For employee, I'm adding a comment as employee number, and for EMP name, I'm adding comment as EMP comments. Now it's better. See, now I don't see any comment on these descriptions. Now when I add these two, you should see this comment. Like this, you can basically add the comments on the columns or whatever. That's only for adding descriptions of the columns or table. Yeah? Next, sequence. This is very important. Now is it fine? Now it's better, boss. Hello? Yeah? Fine. Okay. Okay, boss. Next, we're going to deal with something called sequences, boss. See, for others it is fine, Bala, so I think something should be from your side, please. Check that, right? Next is sequences. It is similar to your number range buffer, number range object. Like say, in BW we have SID number range where it keeps generating a sequential SID number. Or if it is ECC, you have something like document number range. Say for every new sales order you create, it generates a new order number. Same way, when you want to simulate the same kind of stuff in the HANA database, we use something called sequences. Let's say we have some range of numbers, let's say from 1 to 100, and I would keep generating next sequential number. So now it generates 1, the next sequential number should be 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, it keeps generating like that. Then we can use the sequence. Yeah. And when it comes to sequence, you can create with UI or with here it is. Now let me just create select the sequence folder, right click and say what new sequence. Just give some name. And this is the name of the sequence, and this is your schema. And you want the sequence to hold the number range starting with 1, and I'll say minimum value is 1 and max value is, let's say what, 100. And you want increment by 1, so it says 1, the next 2. You can increment by 2, then it keeps increment by 2 numbers. It depends on. I want it to start with 1, increment by 1, and the number range minimum is 1 and max is 100. Now there is a checkbox called cycle. Once it finishes 100, I want to restart again with 1. Then I'll say what? Cycle. Once it finishes 100, it restarts again with 1. Yeah. Then there's something called reset query. Here you can specify. Now, what is this importance of reset query? Let's say now we had number range from 1 to 100. And let's see, you've generated a sequence next, you brought in, and now the status is, let's say 10. So when the status is 10, when you say get me next value, what should be the number? 11, let's say. Okay. Now when the sequence was 10, let's say the server was down. Okay. And then you restarted the server again. Now when you restart the server again, the status will be set back to 1 again. So when you say next value at that point of time, then it starts giving you 2. Now what I want is, when I restart the server, my sequence should be reset. My sequence should be set back to what? 10. So then you can formulate a query, a select statement, which can return that value 10 for it. Getting this? For example, you've been using this sequence to generate some employee IDs. Let's say 1, 2, 3 in one table. Let's say in the table employee ID is primary key. You generated employee ID till what? When the sequence is used as 10, then what? Employee IDs would have been till what number you generate? 10. Then I'll say this query, I'll set the reset query as what? Select max of employee ID from this table. So when the server restarts, what happens? It takes max value from the table, which is 10, and set that as the status. Do you understand this? అంటే నువ్వు ఏ నంబర్ ఇస్తే ఆ నంబర్ తీసుకుంటుంది. కానీ 10 అయినా 11 అయినా ఎలా చెప్తా ఉంటే, లెట్స్ యూ బీన్ యూజింగ్ ది సీక్వెన్స్ to generate employee IDs in a sequential numbering in some tables. Let's say if the status is 10 here, it means you would have generated only 10 numbers in that employee ID column. So when the server restarts, I want to set the status to 10. So I need to formulate a query which can return me 10. Then what I can say, I'll say select max of employee ID from this table. What does it give me? 10. So I'll use that query as the reset query. So when I restart my server, it executes the select statement which gives the 10, and then 10 is set as the status. So when you say next value, it gives you what? 11. If you don't set up the reset query, when the server restarts again, it starts giving you from 1, which might be problem. As the reset query. Okay. Okay. Where are we? We're looking at the sequencing, right? So we created a sequence here, right? So when you work with sequence, there will be 2 functions. One is curval and one is next values. Curval will give you the current value. Next value will give you the next incremental value. Okay, so select. So how to check this? I'll just select. So the sequence dot next val. Okay. See, I'm writing a select statement to just get to use this function called next val. Since I'm not reading from any table, right? I'm reading from any table, no, right? So you can say from dummy. When you want to write some select but not reading from any of the tables, you can just use a table called dummy like that. Yeah. So select this. So what it does give you? Starts with 1 and you keep executing this again. So it gives you what? 2, next value 2, keep executing 3, 4, 5, 6. It keeps giving you next value. So what is value incremented till now? 7, right? But if you use a function curval, what is giving you curval as? Current value is always 7. You execute it any time. Current value will give you what is current status of the number range, and next value will give you the next incremental number range. Okay, was fine. Okay, boss. Look at the requirement. I am just creating a table only with what? What is this here? Employee names here. Okay. Create this table. And these are the different names. I'm just inserting all the names into it. So this is my table with all these names. Don't worry about this row number. This is the only column I've got, employee names. Okay. So now what I'm doing is I'm just creating one more table. I wanted another table with employee and what? Name. Actually, I had a table only with names. Later, I wanted a table with employee ID and name. So this is a table. This does not have any data as of now. I've got names in it. I'm going to insert this employee names into this. Okay. But it doesn't have employee ID. I need to generate those employees by using sequence. Okay. So what I want is I would like to create this. What is this table where I'm putting these sequences in? This table, right? Suppose if the server is down and if I restart, what should be the status I should reset first? Pick the maximum employee from this and I should reset. Yeah. Look at this. What I'm saying. You can also create with SQL also. Create sequence. In the same, okay. Create sequence with this name. Schema name dot sequence number. Start with 1, increment by 1, minimum value is 1, max is 100. If I say cycle, then what? In the UI you have a checkbox, but here you should say cycle or no cycle. You say either cycle. Here for checkbox you should say like this, either cycle or no cycle. And cache 5 and the next 5 numbers will be in the cache. It will be faster to generate the sequence. That's it. Next subsequent 5 numbers will be in the cache. That's it. And I want to reset it. Yes, reset by this query. Select max of employee ID from this table. So whenever I restart my server, it has to pick the max employee ID from this and put that as the status. But do you all have the same problem?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Still?
Yes, sir.
From my side, I'm fine because.
Okay, sir, could you please repeat the cycle concept as many times this concept comes?
When I say cycle, let's say the minimum value is 1 and max is 100. Once it keeps generating the next sequential number, let's say it reaches the max value is 100. So once it reaches 100, if you switch down the cycle, again it restarts the next number from 1 again.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And I'm just creating this cycle sequence. Now what I'm doing, I'm just inserting the data. Look at this, now I'm saying. Insert into this employees table based on the result of this select statement. What is the select doing? The select is just taking the next value of from where? From the sequence, and the employee names from which table? From employee names. Since this does not have any table, don't have to specify anything. So I'm just saying employee name. This will actually give you the sequence number with 1, 2, 3 generated. Already still 6 it is generated.
You're unable to hear anything.
Hello? Yeah? What is it?
Unable to hear anything.
I have a voice break.
It should be fine, but I've just... Now? Yeah? Now is this clear? So you're able to hear me, right? When I try to speak continuously, is it fine? Or any issues you have?
It's clear.
Fine now. It's fine now.
Okay. Okay. So what I'm trying to do is I'm just trying to select the, because I don't have employee ID, which I need to fill in. I'm going to use a sequence as the next value function to get the sequential number. And I use employee name to get the name, and then I'm inserting into this table. So I just execute this insert with this subselect. And now you're going to have this employee IDs. Now why does it start with 7? Because we already run query once, which is generate till 6. The next ones are 7. Like this, I can use the sequence. Suppose if you want to generate some sequential primary key kind of field as an incremental value, then you can use sequences. Okay, boss? Yeah. Next, alter the sequence. So apart from, let's say, you already have the sequence running with status now as what? It was 7, it was 12 now. So the next status would be from 13. So, but I would like to reset the status back to 1. So then I can also alter this, say alter sequence, restart with so and so. I can say. If I execute this alter statement, so I want to restart with 1. Let's say restart with 1. Then now what are the employee numbers I generate? Now it starts from where? 1. So you get 1, 2, 3. Like this, you can alter the sequence to change the status of the sequence also. Okay. And you can also change any other parameters, like say I want alter, let's say you already given max value is 100. We want to increment that max value. You can say alter sequence, max value is say 500, 600, you can change always. Okay. Say for example now, the sequence what you created, the max value is 100, right? Now I would like to change this to, let's say, 200. I'm going to alter this with the max value. If I do this, now the max value is what? I can increment that max value to change the max value. Any property can be changed by using alter, max, min, start with, increment, reset, whatever it is. Okay. Next is our drop statement. So mainly we'll have create statement, alter statement, and drop as part of DDL mainly. So when you say drop, you want to delete that object. It's not about deleting the content, it's about deleting the object as it is. You're deleting the table, deleting the view, you want to delete a sequence or a procedure, anything you want, then we use what? Drop. So for anything, it will be just simple straight sequence, straight drop, object type, what you want, then object name. So you want to drop some table, you will say drop table and the name of the table. You want to drop some view, you will say drop view, name of the view. That's it. So I'll say, so I want to drop this, let's say, I want to drop this table, I'll say drop table, select this, and then this table is employee with no data will be dropped out. Sorry. So you don't see the table employee with no data. Like this, you can drop anything. Any database object can be deleted out with using drop. Or if you want to do the same thing with you, you can right click and say what? Delete. Now do you say delete catalog object or rows? Catalog object. So you'll have, and while dropping you have two options, restrict or cascade. If you say restrict, this object will only be deleted if it doesn't have any dependencies on top of it. If there's any dependencies, this object will not be deleted. But if you say cascade, if it has got any dependencies, this object and all the dependencies also will be deleted. If I say restrict, if it has got any dependencies on this object, will not be deleted out. If I say cascade, whether it has got if it has got dependencies, it will delete the object and the dependencies also on top. Can we restore dropped object from the logs? No. We cannot restore the dropped object from the logs? No. Only thing is you have to restore the backup. Suppose before deleting the table, you have taken a backup of the Hana database. And if you want it back, then you can restore the database back. That is the only thing you can do.
When you say drop table in SQL, whether it checks whether it's restricted or cascade or directly drops, irrespective of anything.
Which one? If you don't specify anything? If you don't specify if you don't specify anything, by default it is restrict, okay? And you can, even with SQL, you can control it, restrict, or you can use, I can say cascade or something. Or you can use cascade. You can use either, even in SQL, you can use a keyword. So you want to delete another table. But I won't like say with, if I say with cascade, even though there are dependencies, it should delete the dependency and the object also. Sorry. So no, you don't have to use a keyword with straight away cascade or restrict. So it's like any object can be deleted, view, sequence, anything, okay. But only thing is, if you want to drop a sequence, you'll say, oh, drop sequence and your sequence name. And once you execute it, sequence, anything, just drop and the type of object what you want, table or whatever, and then object name, cascade or restrict. Next about renaming. See, as part of BW, you don't have the option of renaming the technical name, right? Once it is script, but here we have an option of renaming a table or renaming a column of a table also. Just a simple see, in this table, I have this names, column name is wrong, EMPANEMES. Actually, I want NAMES is actually the name, yeah? So I want to change that. So rename column. From which table? From this table, employee names. What is the old column name? EMP-ANMES. And I want the name to be what? Employee names. So I can rename a column name. You see the name of the column is changed. Like this, you can change the technical name of the column name. Save by using, you can also change the technical name of the table also. Now look at this. So I want to change this table name from unload to load. EMP load. See, now you see unload, right? Now if I refresh, you'll not see any table with unload, you'll just see EMP load. You see load? You don't see unload and you just see as unload. Like this, you can rename the name of a column in a table or take table name also. So don't do it. Right. And that's where they have to rename it mandatorily. They'll try to create synonym with the old name and leave it. So even that works out.
I have a question here.
Yeah.
Generally, if you rename, if some SQL state using the old name, what will happen to that?
Yeah, that's what. So those have to be changed manually. And if not, what you can do is, let's say, then I can create a synonym saying EMP unload for EMP load. So even those SQL should still be working out.
Okay.
Okay, boss. Now let's get into DML statements. Okay, boss. And these are the DML statements which we'll mainly deal with. So we have something called delete operations. DML is like what? DDL was about creating the data. Sorry. We've not finished the procedures. Procedure came లేదనుకుంటాను. Okay, let's see directly. Now let's deal with what procedures. So even for implementing procedures, we would need scripting, SQL script. But now here we are not focusing on SQL scripting. We'll learn that later. But for now, how do we actually create a procedure? That's it. Just an overview on how it is created. So you can understand procedure as like say, whenever you want to implement some reusable logic, you write that as a stored procedure and call it whenever you want. You can ultimately treat that as your ABAP function model, something like that. So you can just you can write all your logic as a separate stored procedure and just call it whenever you want. So let's say when you want to implement ABAP, you have different kind of objects. So you can write as an executable program, you can write that as an include program, you can write that as a macros, or you can write that as a function model, depending on the requirement, right? Same way, procedure would be one medium of object where you can implement your logic with SQL scripting. Okay, boss? And then you can implement the logic in SQL scripting and stored procedure and just call it whenever you want. So look at this, very simple. I want to create a procedure. How do you create? So you'll say create view at the view, create procedure at the. You'll say create procedure, and in which schema you want to create, QX SQL 9, and name of the procedure say add to number something. Just making it simple. So create procedure and name of the procedure bus. And like in above function model, can it have import parameters and output parameters bus? Same way, your procedures also can have input and output parameters, and where that's what is specified in this parenthesis. But as per the example, what I'm doing, I don't have any input, I don't have any output. And then say as, and then say begin and end. Within this begin and end, you start writing all your, within this begin and end, you'll have the body, the actual logic, what you want to implement with scripting, SQL scripting. You have lots of other options, parameters, but for this is the basic one how you can write. So you'll say create procedure, name of the procedure, and within the parenthesis, you can have input or output parameters as begin and end. Okay. I'm just writing simple. Declare v and I'm just declaring one variable v underscore a as integer. Then v underscore a. Adding two numbers like 10 plus 20, and every line in scripting you end with semicolon. And one more point is, normally above when you want to say a equal to 10 plus 20, or you just say equal to, but here assignment operator is colon equal to. Colon equal to is the assignment operator here, and every line ends with a semicolon. So here 10 and 20 are added up, and it assigns a value 30 to this which variable? B underscore a, and the variable is declared. For declaration, instead of using the keyword data, here you use declare. And then I just want to print this out. For printing, I can just use say select B underscore a. So see, when I want to refer to the content of this variable, I would say colon variable names. So if you just say variable, it refers it as a string. But I would like to refer to the content of that variable, so I would say what? Colon variable name. This I would like to give it as something like result something, alias name. Since I'm not reading from any table, I can say from dummy. That's it. So I'm just going to create this procedure. So just declaring a variable. I'm adding up 10 and 20 and assigning the result to what? V underscore a. And same thing, I'm just printing it as a result. So, and I just now procedure is created now. The procedure is created here. Now I get to see when I go to my procedures folder, I get to see the procedure here. Add two numbers, right click and say scripting detail chapter easy. When you say open definition, this is where you see the code, what has been written. Okay. Now I would like to call that procedure bus. So for calling, we use a function called call and your name of the procedure bus. Since it does not have any input or output, you just take this procedure, just say call procedure name. That's it. So when I'm going to call this, it is going to execute that code and print me the result as what? It is going to print that value of v underscore a as what? Result, and print me as what? 30. This is like a simple procedure you can build. Okay. Now the requirement what I have is now we decided that actually it was not supposed to be 10 plus 20. It was supposed to be 30 plus 70. So now I would like to change my procedure. No option of change, because since I've created this procedure in catalog objects, since I've created my procedure in the catalog objects, you'll only have runtime object, which is this. See, right click, and when you say this is like runtime object only, and I cannot change the definition of the runtime object. Okay, suppose, but actually I want that once I create procedure, I should have the flexibility of changing it n number of times depending on my change in the logic, right? So what I'll do, I'll not create procedure here. What I'll do, look at this. I'll go to, you remember in the even in the packages we could create procedure first. If I create my procedure in the content folder, I'll have design time object as well as runtime object. So I can keep changing my design time object n number of times I want. Procedure. So you'll have content. Under the content folder, I'll have what? Packages first. Under package, I can create a right click, say what new, and what else? What is it? Procedure. Give some name. What is it? Edit. Add two numbers. That's my name of the procedure. Don't worry about all this. We'll come to that later. So straight away all the header block is automatically formed. You don't have to write anything. By default, you'll have begin and end. You start writing your logic within the begin and end. When I'm writing in the catalog, I'm just formulating my own header and then having begin and end. Right here, everything is formulated. See, you remember in the parentheses you specify input and output parameter. That you have to be manually added here. You can say right click, new output parameter. You can right click on this and say add new output input parameter, whatever you want. But again parameter name later, so I can say what declare v underscore a, what is it, int, and v underscore a assign 10 plus 20 and select but here if I need to return some value back, select v underscore a the compulsory output undalo ledu from dummy. I'm just writing this and I say what? I say, look at this. I'm just saying save and activate. My procedure name image numbers edit, add two numbers, activate. When I activate this procedure, this is my design time object. Whatever. When I activate, it actually creates a runtime object. Runtime object is also procedure only. The runtime object, all your runtime objects, any modeling content you create, it deploys runtime objects, and all the runtime objects are deployed in a schema called sysbig schema. So now I'll go to the top. If I want to see my runtime procedure of my procedure, which schema I should go in? Sysbig. Go to sysbig. The procedures, try to filter out. What is it? Edit, add, and you see this? You actually create a procedure under this package, right? 9 cubics / edit two numbers. If I open this definition, I see this is runtime object. This is design time. Now it was supposed to be what? Now let's say I want to call this procedure. It'll call this some in the SQL. I'll say what? Call. You'll call runtime object or the design time object? Runtime object. I'll say call this. It's giving me 30. But let's say I wanted to change this out. So what I'm doing? Where will it go? I'll go to my content folder. Under the package, I have a procedure. So this is the design time object, right? So I can change my design time object. You understand the difference between creating? If I create my object in the catalog folder, you only have runtime object. If I create my objects in the content folder, you'll have design time object as well as runtime object. Now I'll say open this again. In the 30, and it was supposed to be what? 70. And reactivate. So when reactivate, nothing but redeploying. When I redeploy, again it creates what? Again it creates, it changes the existing procedure definition again, runtime definition. It becomes now 30 and 70. And if I call this procedure saying call, you understand the difference? If I create my procedure straight away into my catalog folder, I only have runtime object. But if I create my procedure in the content, I have design time file as well as runtime object. So I have the flexibility of changing the procedure later. The depth on the, but this is a rough idea about how the procedure looks like. You can write this procedure and call it like this. Okay, what's fine?
So when the earlier data artifacts, for example, table, views, indexes, sequences, even those we were creating in the catalog. So, but we were able to edit them.
Exactly. When it comes to the coding, when it comes to the coding, basically, say for example, you're able to edit the table because it has got their own design time file available, and you're able to edit this. But when it comes to procedure, it will have only runtime object. That's what. So that's why you're not able to edit it. Because when you're creating a table, it has got its own design time object ready, and you're able to edit that also. But when it comes to procedure, you only have the runtime object. You don't have design time objects. Actually, there's another perspective called Hana native develop. If I get into this, then you will see exact meaning of design time file and runtime files more clearly. Yeah. If you compare with BW content like BigQuery design catalog, like BigQuery. No. Don't compare like that.
మనం వేరియబుల్స్ క్రియేట్ చేసి మన రన్ టైమ్ లో చేంజ్ చేసుకోవాలి అంటే బిఏబి అని డిక్లేర్ చేసి దానికి వాల్యూస్ ఇవ్వడం నేను యాడ్ చేయాలన్నా
అవన్నీ చేయొచ్చులేపా చూసాము అవన్నీ చూసాం ఏదైనా చేయొచ్చు దిస్ ఇస్ ఓన్లీ బేసిక్ నో వాట్ వి ట్రైంగ్ టు సే అంటే ప్రొసీజర్ అంటే ఏంది అంతవరకే ఇంకా విల్ గెట్ ఇన్ డెప్త్ అబౌట్ రైటింగ్ స్క్రిప్టింగ్ విత్ multiple input parameters, multiple output, table type, temporary tables, looping, heaping, cursor, we'll get into all those depth. Okay. Now apart from, okay, now this is my, okay. We can also debug the procedures also. Let's say this is like coding, right? So like similar to your ABAP, we can also debug the stored procedures also. You can just double click on the procedure. Let's say I want to debug it. So double click on this procedure. Okay. It opens this object. Okay. Now you see like in ABAP, when you say F5, it is executing one line, right? Like when it's F8, it jumps to the breakpoint. Here it does not have anything like F5, F6, F8 all this. Straight away you have only F8. So F8 is like jumping to the breakpoint. So if you want to execute every line, I should insert breakpoint in every line. That is the only option. So inserting breakpoint is just double click. Just double click, it inserts breakpoint. Okay. Now, see, remember we have different perspectives, right? For debugging, we use a perspective called what is here? Debug perspective. Debug perspective. Get into the debug perspective. Then you'll have you'll have a menu called debug configurations here. Drop down this and say what? Debug configuration. Go to the number either debug configurations. Now you have to create in the like configuration, you got to specify all the settings required for it. Select this Hana procedure. You can just click on this new. So do you want to can just give some name? Debug demo procedure. And then you want debug catalog procedure or local projects. I'll say what. So I'm trying to debug the runtime object which is in sysbig schema. So I'll say what catalog schema. And what is your procedure was? Sysbig schema procedure. Select this. You got to specify which procedure you want to debug. Okay. And in this tab, if this procedure has got any input parameter, generally if it is ABAP, during in the debugging it goes to selection screen and then comes back. But here it doesn't go like that. If this procedure requires any input parameter, imports, okay, you have to specify it by here itself. But this does not need anything. Just say apply and say start debug. Now you see cursor coming out here. You see the watch points V_A. Now it is null. Only F8 we have. You don't have any F5. So since insert breakpoint at every line, it's going to stop at every line. So it stops next line. Now it says V_A is 30. Now what is the value of V_A now? After this line is executed, it becomes what? 100. Again, like ABAP, you don't have flexibility of changing the parameter values at the runtime. No. You can only see. It can edit good. You can't change the parameter values during debug. You can only see this. That's it. And then next, that's it. Yeah, that you can switch off, switch on while debugging. You can do. For example, if you want, already it's done, right? Terminated. Now, if you want reinsert, you can say relaunch again. Again, the debugging starts again. Now, here you see all the breakpoints. What is it? If you want to disable some of the breakpoint, I don't know the breakpoint at the line number 7. So I can do what? I can do remove this. So that see that breakpoint is disabled. It doesn't stop at that point. You can do that. But changing the parameter values at the runtime is not. Because in older versions, it was not so easy to debug a procedure like this. For debugging one procedure, I had to create one more procedure as wrapper, then use a procedure wrapper for debugging the main procedure. It's straightforward, very, very simple. It is simple. Previously, it was more tough to, because while creating debug configuration, it is asking me what import, if I don't need to pass anything into the import parameters. Okay. If there's any procedure with input parameters, if I had to debug, I had to create a wrapper procedure which will call the procedure by passing that parameter, then debug this procedure so that it will call that and debug that. Now this is made simple. Now we don't have all these options. Okay. So like this, you can also debug your procedure. We'll see in detail when you're writing complex logics, it makes sense to debug. Okay? Then we'll get into functions. We have something called function. Even for implementing functions, we still use scripting. See, we use APAP to develop a function model, to develop an executable program, all this, right? So this is another type of programmable object, which is called functions. So even to develop functions or to create functions, we use scripting here. But there is a difference between functions and stored procedures. There are a lot of differences, but major difference you can think is, in a stored procedure, I can export multiple output parameters, but function can return only one output parameter. There are a lot of differences. We'll see that later. But major difference should be that your procedure can return multiple output parameters, but function can return only one output parameter. Okay, 6 days. Yeah, I will discuss on that video point. Don't worry now. Yeah. So I'm just using this. I'm just creating some function. This is how you create a function. Purpose. It's more like instead of saying create procedure, you say what? Create function. Compulsory return jail parameters also like that. Confusion. Okay. So look at this. I said previously I could just create a procedure which is just printing that value. Is it returning that value v underscore a? Was it returning v underscore a or just printing the results? Within that procedure, it is printing. It is not returning anything. But when it comes to procedure, it must return a parameter. Function must return parameter, but it can return only one parameter only. Anything. But procedure, you can have a procedure without output parameters. You can have single output parameter. You can have multiple output parameters also. But whereas function can only have single output parameter only. And this single output parameter could be a normal scalar variable or table type also. You see that later. But see now, I'm saying create function. The create function schema name dot add. This is my function name. And this is going to return my C, okay, as and then begin and end. Within the begin and end, I'm just writing the logic. So v underscore C is what? 10 and 10 plus 20. So this function will gives me what? 30. So here I'm not declared anything. So with returns I've declared. So I'm explicitly declaring which there will be only single parameter which will be written out. That will be declared as returns. Okay. And then if it is a procedure, but if it is a procedure, you're using call function to call the procedure. But if it is function we don't call the function with call or something. Function is embedded into select statement generally. So you have lots of ready-made functions given by SAP like string, concatenate, left string, right string, left, right. You'll have a lot of functions. This is like custom function you have developed. This is like custom function you have developed, and these functions can, when you want to call this function, they have to be embedded inside a select statement alone. Now look at this. I have a function which is called in here, which is created. What is this here? Add. I want to call that function. Say select. What is this? Add of. Does this need any inputs? Then I remove, right? I remove the input. Does not need anything. This function has to be called. That's as. And this, when it returns me something, what is it? V underscore as, I'll say what? Result from dummy. So look at this function. Am I calling this function with call statement, or I'm embedding this function into the select statement? Into the select statement, yeah. Like 30. We'll see much more differences, but this is about, so either you develop a procedure or triggers or functions, we still implement the logic with what? Scripting. So we have to learn. So we can use either of this object to learn scripting. Say you want to practice scripting, I can go over to creating procedure, I can go over to creating function, I can go over to create trigger and practice my scripting. So we'll be using procedures to practice more on that scripting. Okay. Yeah, and there's something called, what is here? I'll get in detail about functions, don't worry. Function and procedure okay. And there's something called.
Sir, we are selecting from dummy table. Is that dummy table stored somewhere, or it's work as a dual?
It always gives you some X. As not only in Hana, it is common in any database. It actually, you'll have a table called dummy. Database dummy. Okay. When you want to write a select, but not really reading from any of the tables, you can use this table called dummy.
It is just like a dual in web, right?
Just like
Dual.
I don't know.
No, in general SQL we use dual. Select sysdate from dual, something like
that. Might be, but I'm not sure.
Okay.
Next is about column views. See, if you know about database views, right? You're writing some SQL statements which will be provided as a view bus. But I have a requirement like this. I want to have a complex logic to be implemented with scripting, and the result of the scripting should be projected as a view. If you look at database view, you join two tables or you write some inner join or whatever it is and then do. But let's say my requirement is like this. Take data from some table 1 and loop through each and every record, do some logic, do look up to some other tables, delete some records from the table and do all kind of manipulations. Then whatever the result I've got, I would like to project that as a view. And when I try to read the content of the view, at the runtime it executes that stored procedure and gives me the result of this. That is what column view is. In case of a database view, in case of a database view, you're just trying to join multiple tables and give it out, project it. That is normal view. Now, when you say column view, it's like this. Say you want to implement some complex logic, which could be deleting, looping. It could be any kind of logic. After performing this logic, you have some results set projected, which you would like to project as a virtual object, which can be done through column views. So when I try to refer to a column view, it actually fires a procedure and the result of a procedure is being projected as a column view. Virtual.
Okay.
Now look at, not exactly. I'm not really so strong with other database, but in other database they use something called metallized views. Do metallized views store data physically? Sure, Amma. But I read somewhere metallized views store data also. Data bettu. Metallized views also store kada? But actually this is more like a metallized view with more of complex logic, but do not store data. When I say column views, similar to other database which is more like metallized views with more complex logic, but they do not store data here. These are virtual again. These column views are virtual. Okay. Now look at this. Then but let's not get confused. Okay. See, now look at this. Look at the definition. We'll see this later, but look at the definition of this column view. When I see the definition, it clearly tells me this is a column view, which is actually depend on what is this here? Procedure schema is what? 8 cubics. In this 8 cubics, there is a procedure called what? Contract compliance. So whenever I try to see the data of this view, it executes that procedure and gives me the result. Now what is this procedure? I have a procedure called see, in contract compliance. While writing a procedure, they would write something like this. Look at this. Don't worry in this with SQL data with result view as this. What is it? What are the result I'm going to get from the procedure? I'm going to project that as a view. This is nothing but column view. When I create a procedure like this, it automatically creates a column view for me. Column view by create column view and when you're developing a procedure with the syntax of with result view, means the result of this procedure must be projected as a view, which actually it creates a column view. And you write any complex logic with delete operations, do anything, looping, all this. And then what are the result you're getting out of the procedure will be projected as this column. And this column view can be consumed in the universe. In IDT universe, now we have a problem that you're not able to use stored procedures now. In UDT, we are able to use stored procedures, but in IDT, we are not able to use a stored procedures. Let's say we had a requirement of using a stored procedure in HANA in universe. Now, the only option you can think of is you have customized your procedure so that it projects the result as a column view and use column view in universe. And column view is virtual. So whenever I try to put a select on the column view, it always executes my procedure and gives me the result. And that will have again some considerations. If I want to project this as a result view as column view, your procedure must return out a table type parameter and conditions. We'll see that later. But column view can be the one which can be fired out from a procedure. That's what I mean. So you want to implement some complex logic, and the result of this logic to be projected as a view, virtual view, then I can go with what? Column view.
Instead of calling the procedure again and again, the result can be consumed in the table.
That's the table not thing. This is similar to say so when I fire a select on that column view internally it is executing that stored procedure and giving me the result. That's it.
It doesn't take any space in memory. And it is virtual.
It is virtual. So this should be the workaround solution when you want to use a stored procedure of HANA into universe in IDT, because you cannot insert a procedure into IDT straight away. So this should be the workaround to use column views. So enable a procedure enable a procedure to project the result as a column view and consume column view in IDT universe. That's it. Yeah, what is the doubt?
So what is this universe?
Yeah, it is actually when they do reporting on BO, when they want to consume this database objects of HANA, they create some semantic layer in that. Like we thought, let's say, now HANA is a different database, BO is a different software, right? So in BO, they need to have a connection, from BO, they need to have a connection towards HANA tables, HANA database. So they specify the connection parameters, and they specify which table should be used, which columns of the table should be used, what is the logic, and all those is defined in the semantic layer, which is called as universe. Yeah. And on top of that universe, they use that universe as a source to create reports here. And universe will have all the connection parameters and the backend schema details here.
Okay, sir, and what is the difference between this IDT and UDT? IDT environment and UDT environment?
Actually, those are the tools to create universes. UDT was the old tool and IDT was a new tool.
Okay.
In BO environment, these are the tools to create universes. And UDT was the old tool to create universe, and IDT is the new tool to create universes. I know it is confusing, but when we next classes, when we get detailed into scripting, you will understand it more. But for now, the column view can be projected out from a procedure where when you try to call a column view is virtual, and when you try to call a column view, it actually calls a procedure, and the results of the procedure can be projected as a result of a column view. And how it is done, why it is done, we'll see that later. But what is column view anthavarthu? It is virtual. Okay.
Can we use this analytical calculation view?
And we can use this in calculation views. And he's asking, what are the column views I create? Can I use this in calculation views? Yes, we can do that. And one more point to be noted is, when you see, I told you, in HANA modeling content, you create attribute view, analytical view, calculation views, right? For all this, does it create some runtime objects? All your runtime objects will be column views only. So I go to HANA modeling content, I create attribute view, it creates all the necessary column views in the backend. I create analytical view, it creates column view. I create calculation view, it creates column view.
So we can check the logic directly in the column.
But you will not, for those you will not, if it is procedure I can understand, but those you will not understand. I will show you one. It is more like an XML, some kind of stuff. This is one kind. He uses some alias column names and then he uses this. But if you're good, if you take this into Notepad, we should be able to understand it. Should not be a problem. So when you've done some graphical modeling and when you deploy it, it actually creates this runtime column views in this. So for all your HANA modeling objects, attribute view, analytical view, calculation, it creates those runtime column views in this. So in the BO reporting, you can consume view as it is, or you can consume column view, or you can consume tables, any way you want. Okay? We'll see that.
Go to the procedure that you created as a column view.
Sorry, I could not hear you. What is it?
Can you please go back to the procedure that you were creating as a column view?
Can we get the procedure?
Can you please go back to the procedure that you created as a column view?
Okay. Yeah, this one. Yeah.
Okay. So how it is displayed as a column view? I mean, where we have specified that.
Yeah. While creating procedure, I said project the result with result view so and so. So what are the results I'm going to project from the procedure? It is going to project this as this column view name. That's why I had a column view with this name as what? Contract compliance.
Okay.
Yeah.
Understood.
Yeah. Okay. So we'll stop it here for today, and then we'll continue. And for videos, I think there was some lot of issue on it. So yesterday I started working on it. So today we should finish that problem. So you should receive videos today. Okay. Sorry for that. And
the result of the procedure
you received it yesterday, right? Yeah. What is it?
The result of a procedure will be in a column view.
Result of the procedure will be projected as column view only if you're outputting a table type parameter. Otherwise, no. If your procedure is returning a table type output parameter, then only the result can be projected as column view. We'll see that conditions later. Don't worry too much on that. We'll get into very detailed was. మీరు వద్దనే దొరకు చెప్తానే ఉంటారు. Okay, scripting and okay. Fine. Don't worry now. Yeah. Tomorrow we'll have class. Yeah. Plan వద్దలే. Plan జరగదు. వచ్చే రేపు. We'll have class tomorrow also. Okay. Thanks.